I can't do it. Okay. We'll do it live.
Okay.
We'll do it live. It. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. Thing sucks.
And with that, we welcome you in. It's the Daily Puck Drop. It's Monday here, 10 o'clock on the DPD. We welcome you in. We are, of course, in the Limbeck Lumber Studios, built by Limbeck Lumber Contractors. They got free deliveries, everything from whole house packages to homeowner DIY projects. Largest stock moldings in the Northwest, old school service. Why? Because they've been doing it since 1930. Give Limbeck Lumber a call, 206-782-3487. Visit them online at limbecklumber.com. You're noticing no go-to guy today. Go-to guy got called in. This is the beauty of Jim Moore and why I love him dearly. He's like, oh, I forgot. I've got knee surgery on Monday. So he's not here today. Hopefully he's back on Wednesday. I think he was supposed to go in for knee surgery today, but then had to cancel it, but he's not feeling well. Regardless, he's not here today. But I should say, if Jim were here, I would say that his Monday, Wednesday, and Friday appearances, minus today, is brought to you by Clean Streak, a professional window and exterior cleaning service, and Bright Owl Lighting, professional Christmas lighting expert installer. So, Jim Moore, not here. He should be back on Wednesday, fingers crossed. And he should be back tomorrow for the Old Crimson Cougars podcast, which we will get into the Cougs a little bit later in the show. As you see the rundown, we got the Seahawks unexpected win. Is it a signature win? Cougs need some changes. We've got ground puck today. Since no Jim Moore, we've moved up ground puck to 10:30 today. So Tim Booth and Curtis Crabtree will stop on by at 10:30 today, and we'll talk all things Seattle Seahawks. And, of course, Hey, What the Puck, as we wrap up every show with Hey, What the Puck at the end of the program. Of course, weekend roundup also coming your way as we talk about all the things that happened in this past weekend in the world of sports. Just an unexpected fun win. I don't know how else to explain it. I mean, me and others, we just, you leave this team for dead, for God's sakes, and they bounce back and they have one of those games. Just remarkable. It's the, and that's why we're wearing the old school corduroy. Wore this when I was 10, Seahawks hat. It had to be busted out after a game like that. That was an old school win. There's a lot to cover. We'll try to get to some of it before we do the Ground Puck Seahawks podcast with Tim Booth and Curtis Crabtree, of course, brought to you by Georgetown Brewery. But it just, this is why you watch sports. It's why you pay attention to sports, honestly. It's just for these unexpected games and wins that you just, I mean, we can explain it, but you get my point. You can't explain it. A week ago, we're just talking about, God, if they lose this game, and then if they lose the game against Arizona, hell, tank the rest of the season. Because, I mean, what's the point? What's the point? I mean, you're out of it now. Now, all of a sudden, with this victory, which, again, I mean, I spoke with Jim all week, and with our handicapper, Troy wins on Friday. I couldn't believe the line. I'm like, 6.5? How is it not more? You were you made changes with your linebackers. You had a center retire midweek. I'm done playing football. On a serious note with that, I hope he's okay. Just personally, I hope he's okay. I think when things like that happen with Connor Williams or any player, I think you start to worry just a little bit about the person, right? And whatever led to that decision for Connor Williams to abruptly retire, probably something he was thinking about for a while. So if he's truly done with football and there's something else going on in his life, then I think good for him to step away from the sport. But anyways, so he retires. You're thrusting Abe Lucas back into a situation. He's going to be on a pitch count. No one has any idea how Abe Lucas is going to perform. I thought he played great, by the way. And I'm a homer, though. And it's the Niners. They gashed you in the first meeting. I mean, they obliterated your defensive line and your defense. And that was without Christian McCaffrey. Now all of a sudden McCaffrey's back, and you're thinking to yourself, This is just going to be they're going to whitewash them. I mean, they get great news on the injury front with Kittle out. He, of course, is a difference maker and a factor on that team. And then the Nick Bosa injury obviously was, obviously a problem there as well. But again, the situation there with the Niners and the Seahawks, it just was one of those wins in which was desperately needed, and they got it. They got it. It was a great win. It just was remarkable that they kind of were able to, get through all the other distractions of what was leading up, I think, into that week, and they got a win, and they got a victory. And it's just kudos to them. Kudos to Mike Macdonald. It was not only clearly their best win of the Mike Macdonald era, their best win in a long, long time. A long time. And I know we're going to cover a lot of it here in the Ground Puck podcast coming up at the bottom of the hour. But, I mean, listen, Geno Smith on the final drive, it was detailed a lot just about his numbers going in against San Francisco and what they were and how he had not beaten them. They hadn't beaten this team in the last 6 outings. In fact, they have been dominated in the last 6 against those guys. And the fact is, they put that all aside. They played a tough, physical, not perfect brand of football. I mean, they were far from perfect yesterday. Far from it. There was a lot of issues. The third and fourth down short yardage situations were problematic. However, I know people are going to still beat them up on their short yardage situations. And again, listen, they're not perfect at it. They need to get better at it. Tim Booth wrote about it. We'll talk to Tim, coming up at the bottom of the hour. Tim wrote a little bit about it in the paper this morning saying, hey, listen, they still have issues running the football. And yeah, they still have obviously issues of running the football consistently. The third and short one on the quarterback sneak, I'm not gonna criticize him for that. I mean, my God, that was a first down. That was such a horrible spot. That was one of the worst spots ever. He was more than half of his body was over the first down marker, over half of it. So I don't know how they didn't call that a first down. But Geno Smith was just, again, he's a huge storyline, the second biggest storyline. I think the first being obviously what the defense provided, throughout that entire game. But that final drive was just vintage. And that's the hardest thing with him, is that there are moments like that final drive in which you sit back and you're wowed with some of the throws and the plays that he can make. Then you've got that first possession of the second half when he just throws an inexplicable INT, just a terrible decision by Geno. Again, credit the defense. They only gave up a field goal, and they kept him in the game. But he's unbelievable of that hot and cold nature of him. He's a very up and down player. But there are moments when he spins the ball, and Greg Olsen talked about it yesterday, moments where he spins the ball where he is just electric, and just looks so good throwing the football. And it's really just a testament to him and just a credit to him. It's just it's amazing to kind of watch him go out there and play. Geno Smith, again, that final drive, 7 of 8, 54 yards, 2 rushes for 29 yards and a touchdown. Defense, again, just locked down, stout all day long was the defense. First time they held San Francisco under 20 points since 2019. Brock Purdy, 5.7 yards per attempt, the second lowest in 37 career starts. That was a note coming from Mike Sando. The defense shut down again. Geno, after that interception, gave up that field goal. It was 10-6 after that. Again, just the defense to me was the number one storyline there from the game yesterday. Why they just played excellent. They were all over the place. They were making plays left and right. They were just sensational. Yesterday was the defense. Ultimately, that's what won them the game. Is that defense? And I don't know. I mean, shoot, did anybody see that defensive performance happening? I mean, I didn't. I don't think there's a single person that saw the way that that defense played in the way that they had played all season long. I don't think there was anybody that saw that defense playing like that they did on Sunday. This is remarkable. It was just a remarkable turnaround from Tyrese Knight, the way that he played. I think from the way that Ernest Jones was playing in the game. You know, the defense just, I mean, the up front, the not missing of the tackles, the flying to the football for these guys was just remarkable. I mean, they were flying around all over the place, making plays. I mean, aggressive, not missing tackles. They didn't give up big chunks of yards. That was something that was a problem in the first meeting, you know, when they played them in Seattle, that they just had way, way, way too many, you know, not only just missed tackles, but just way too many plays downfield. That was not the problem yesterday. And the fact is that, yes, they had some guys out, but you hold that offense and that coordinator / head coach Kyle Shanahan to the amount of points and yards that they did. Just a credit to Mike Macdonald. I think a credit to his defensive staff. No doubt, as we have in the rundown, that's a signature win for Seattle. That's a signature win for Mike Macdonald. That's a game yesterday that Mike Macdonald holds up and goes, that's the style of football that we want to play. That's it right there. That's the football that we want to play week in and week out. And it was just, it was phenomenal to watch. Defense, again, was great. Story of the game. Devin Witherspoon, probably one of his best games maybe in a Seahawks uniform. You know, there's the Giants game, right? Was that last year, right? Or was it 2 years? Wait, last year? Yeah. The Giants game. But Devin Witherspoon, you know, from the pass breakup that led to the interception, to his just tackling, to his blitz on that final drive for San Francisco, which is kind of goes unnoticed a little bit. That blitz that he had on that final drive, which then forced Brock Purdy to kind of throw it quick, hot to Jennings out in the flat. That's kind of the reason he had to do that, was kind of made in part because of Devin Witherspoon blitzing off the end. I mean, he's a playmaker. He's got absolute juice. He flies around. He makes plays. He can do everything. He can tackle. He can blitz. He's physical. He's fast. Covers everybody. I mean, he's just an absolute weapon to have. So he played great. The Knight and Ernest Jones combination, that was a huge, obviously going to be a massive topic going into the season, going into the game. Just the play there of Jones and Knight. How would they play together? I mean, there was a clear failure in this offseason for these linebacker core, right? About what they didn't add, about what they added, and then obviously how it did not deliver, right? With Baker and Dotson both going out. But those two guys were just phenomenal. I mean, they were 23 tackles combined. And again, there was never a moment where those guys didn't look out of place or didn't look fast, there wasn't a point where they didn't look physical or aggressive. And I just thought it was, from the get-go, what you saw in that game yesterday was just those guys at that linebacker position playing the style of football that Mike Macdonald wants to play. And it just goes back to his decision and their decision as an organization, to move on and say, hey, listen, it's not working. Okay, it was a terrible offseason in terms of what we did with the linebackers. Let's find a solution, and that solution was those guys. Those guys have played great. Clearly, and it's a topic, the Nick Bosa injury was obviously something that was beneficial to Seattle. And there's just, it's okay. There's no other way to get around it. It benefited Seattle to sit there and have him out of the game. I mean, duh. They scored 14 points with him out. They scored the 2 touchdowns without him being on the field. So, again, that's part of the game. It happens. Thank God he was out. I thought Abe Lucas, you give that guy a grade. I think you give him an A- for his first game back. There was one play where Bosa was matched up on him. I think he allowed a sack or he got around him or he bull rushed him. I mean, you're talking about an all-pro. You're talking about one of the best if not the best defensive end in football, getting Abe Lucas, who's coming back off an injury. He hasn't played damn near a year. But other than that, I thought you saw Abe Lucas's difference on the very first play of the game. Go back and watch the very first play of the game. And he takes his man, and he drives him 4 to 5 yards off the line of scrimmage in the middle of the field. And that was the immediate difference of having Abe Lucas there. Now, did he make up for the issues still with Anthony Bradford? No. There's still going to be issues with Anthony Bradford. But I think you saw the immediate impact of Abe Lucas on that offensive line. They still didn't probably rush the ball as consistent as they need to do, but you watched him several times, and I just had my eyes on him almost all game long when he was in there. I think he was in there all but 2 series, I believe. I watched him the entire time. And for the most part, he stonewalled his guy every single time. So great to have him back. It's funny in a weird way because he looked good, and then you flip over to the other side. God, Charles Cross did not look good. I mean, Charles Cross, looked really bad yesterday. Got pushed down a few times, tripped, got beat pretty easily. That was not one of Charles Cross's greatest games. I thought for the most part, again, no offensive line guru. We'll save that for somebody else. I don't think the snap was necessarily his fault. Maybe it could have been a little bit better. Thought that was kind of mishandled there by Geno. I thought Oluwatimi looked good. I don't know. You didn't really talk about him that much, right? Didn't talk about him getting bull rushed or thrown back like you have with Connor Williams. There wasn't these errant snaps left and right like there was with Connor Williams. Yeah, I thought he looked really good at times. Did Oluwatimi. And I think there's a stat out there. I think Brady Henderson had it for ESPN. I don't think he allowed a pressure in all the pass dropbacks that Seattle had. I mean, he passed with flying colors yesterday. So hopefully, I mean, God, did they, in a weird way, did they maybe get it right with him? I think just for the first test that Oluwatimi had, he passed yesterday, filling in there for Connor Williams. And Oluwatimi will be the starter, clearly, for the rest of the season. I thought Jackson Smith-Njigba, just continues to shine. Just has taken now. He's the second best wide receiver on the team. This will lead to further discussion as we get to the offseason, what they're going to do with Tyler Lockett. It's probably pretty obvious what's going to happen there with Tyler Lockett. But, his last 3 games for Jackson Smith-Njigba, 23 catches, 359 yards, 2 touchdowns in the last 3 games. He was a beast in the game yesterday, another game over 100 yards. He was a beast on that final drive. He just continues to get open. You're starting to see a real superstar kind of flourish this season now in year number, 2 for him, year 1 under Ryan Grubb. One of the things when we looked at the hire of Ryan Grubb, most excited about is how he would affect 3 players, Geno, and how would he use DK Metcalf and JSN. JSN's just having a great season and has been just sensational there in the last 3. I think you got to note Jason Myers. I got to kudos. Come on. Give a little recognition to the kicker. Cheers up to the kicker here on Monday morning. Guy made a 52 and a 57-yard field goal. A great damn kick, man. They're not in that game early on. All right? The offense was stalling, not sustaining drives early. There's a thumbs up there on the show. Come on. Give a thumbs up to Jason Myers for hitting that 52 and 57-yard field goal. I wonder for San Francisco fans, I know I was talking to our buddy Niner Nate back in the day, of course, from the old radio days, and Niner Nate was complaining about that final drive for Shanahan and the Niners. I will wonder if he goes back and second guesses himself. 1st and 10 on that final drive. McCaffrey ends up getting 11 yards. Then they get a penalty. Then they get a loss for 1 yard for McCaffrey. So it's 2nd down and 11 for Christian McCaffrey and the Niners. They elect to throw it there. It's incomplete. Then they got to throw it on 3rd down, and then they get the short gain. That's the play we were talking about with Devin Witherspoon coming off the edge. Do you run it there on 2nd down, try to take some more time off the clock? That would be a decision probably he'll look back on. It's not the most egregious thing. It's 2nd down and 11. But, you just 2 plays early had ripped off an 11-yard run. They're probably expecting pass. Do you go run there? It's just amazing. You go from last week, 4-5, lose the next 2. Should they lose the rest of the games? If they now somehow beat Arizona this week at home, in which they're a 1-point underdog at home, they haven't played well at home, which is just the oddest thing in the world, but yet they're playing well on the road. And if other things break their way, because you've got the 49ers are at the Packers, Packers will be favored. Rams are at home against the Eagles. Eagles will be favored. If those 2 teams lose, and if my math is correct, because I'm an idiot, it was a comm major, if they beat Arizona, all of a sudden, we're talking about a team that's in a first-place tie. That's in first place in the NFC West. It's just, this is why I said earlier to start off the show, sports are stupid. They're stupid and fun at the same time. Because it just, you think you figured it out. You kind of think you know where it's going to go and how it's going to play out, and then it just goes in a completely different way. And that's what makes it fun. It makes it fun to kind of watch sports. It makes it fun to cover it. And because it's fun to be wrong. I was wrong, man. I thought for sure, probably like many of you, I didn't think they stood a shot or a chance against these guys coming up yesterday. But they did. They did, and they pulled it out. It was a great win for them. Great win for Mike Macdonald. I think it's a signature win. He can hang it up. Not only just a signature win, I think, for Mike Macdonald. I think it's one of the more signature wins here in the last few years for Seattle. Because they won it in a fashion where it was tough and gritty. It was the foundation of it was defensive based, and they made key plays. It was just a very old school, kind of, AFC North type of game yesterday for the most part. That's how they won, like where Mike Macdonald came from. On the day that the Ravens were playing the Steelers, it had a very just AFC North feel to it. And just kudos to Geno, man. There's a great final drive. Great throw to DK on the sideline. There was another great play that he made at JSN where he almost pulled the trigger to throw deep to DK, but he saw that safety come over late. He didn't do it. And then, one of the things that's most underrated about Geno Smith is his athleticism and his ability to run. I think that, he is a pocket quarterback, but he is more athletic than you think. And he gets out and he can make plays, and he made a play, man. He made 2 huge plays. The first one, and then, of course, the one where he scored. Just a great decision by Geno. Good for him. I know it's been kind of up and down for him. And as Curtis has pointed out, and I'm sure he'll point it out again when he joins at the bottom of the hour, it's hard to, at times, fully evaluate these guys and fully evaluate the play of Geno and the team offensively as a whole when there's so many question marks with their offensive line. For one game, again, they still had some problems, not being able to establish the run. But for one game, that offensive line just felt settled, felt a little bit more at ease and not the turnstile that it was before. Again, does the Bosa injury, him going out late in the third quarter, not playing the fourth quarter, play into it? Yeah, but I thought it looked good in the first half when Bosa was in there. A lot of that credit's going to go to Abe Lucas coming back because I think it just kind of solidifies things. But just thought for the most part, they look good. We'll have more on the Seahawks coming up, bottom of the hour, Ground Puck, Seahawks podcast with Curtis Crabtree and Tim Booth, brought to you by Georgetown Brewery. Real quick on the Cougs, because I have it there. Cougs need changes. Yeah, I think today, and we'll see if they do it. I doubt that Jake Dickert will pull the trigger on this, but they need to make a move at defensive coordinator and find someone new. Jeff Schmedding, he doesn't have it. And you don't want to just completely blame, the coordinator, because I can make an argument that, they just don't have any game wreckers up front. They don't. Unfortunately, they are very void of true playmakers in the front seven, and it's a weird one because David Gusta gets a lot of praise, and I think he's a good player. I think he gets a little too much praise from people. He's a PFF darling, and I think at times when I watch him play, I'm not sure I quite get it. I think that's where the analytics and the eyes kind of play against each other there a little bit. In terms of their other players, they have nothing on the edges. Nothing. They are average at linebacker to below average. But the thing with Schmedding and the defensive coordinator there and their defense as a whole, there's zero adjustments. And this is not just a one-game reaction to what happened in Albuquerque against New Mexico. It's not just a one-game reaction. It's been a whole season. They've made zero adjustments all season long. They've run the same defense every single game. There's a photo. I'll snap it out. We're going to talk about it tomorrow on the Old Crimson. On their goal line stand on third down, where the Dampier guy ends up scoring. They're running a base defense, 4-3. They've got 3 linebackers that are 4 yards into the end zone. The ball's on the 1 yard line. Like, what are we doing? Like, why is not everybody up on the line of scrimmage? And they've got one side in which they've got like 4 dudes. They have 2 extra blockers on the right side, and yet we've got like 3 guys over there. It's been a problem all year long. We've complained about it almost after every game. I was talking to those guys last week. Listen, I just thought that they were going to kick a game at the end of the season. They're going to kick a game at the end of the season because their defense is just not that good. And it bit them in the ass. It absolutely bit them in the ass there on Saturday night there in Albuquerque. You know, I think that we talked about analytics earlier. I think Jake Dickert and his coaching staff really have got to reevaluate how much effort and time and faith they put in analytics. Because I don't care what book they have that tells you that we're not going to call timeouts at the end of the game, especially within the 10-yard line. They let so much time run off the clock. It was embarrassing. And they ended the game with all 3 of their timeouts. They got the ball back with 20 seconds left. They could have called the timeout with 1:20 left. They could have called the timeout with 40 seconds left. They just, because they trust some analytics book that told, no, you can't do it, they just let all of that time wind down. And by the way, New Mexico, they're idiots too. They're snapping the ball with 20 seconds on the play clock. I mean, they were morons how they handled it. That was just a bad football game. As much as that's on the players, what happened on Saturday, a lot of that's on the coaches. A lot of that's on Schmedding, the defensive coordinator. He's not the guy. They need to move in a different direction with that. Jake Dickert's got to take ownership of that defense. I mean, he's a defensive coordinator. He's got to find somebody that is going to bring a system that is not vanilla, that's multiple, that can confuse offenses, and not just line up in the same formation every single time. And also on Saturday night, I don't think Ben Arbuckle is excused from blame. I thought he was just way below average on Saturday night. They completely went away from a game plan that was so successful in the first half to a game plan in the second half that was just, I mean, embarrassing. They literally just said, you know what? We're not going to run the football anymore. We're just going to decide to go away with that, despite us having a 2-score lead. Wonderful. All right, that's it. We'll get to the Cougs a little bit later. But hey, ladies and gentlemen, a little bit more Seahawks time, because we got to talk Seahawks football ground puck podcast with Tim Booth and Curtis Crabtree.
Prepare well, your team's probably going to play well. You're not always going to win, but they're going to play hard, and they're going to go out there and give good performance. You can live with that.
Today we're going to talk about our next opponent.
Boys, it's back. I didn't play it last week. I should have played it last week, and I forgot to do it. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Ground Puck Seahawks podcast with Tim Booth and Curtis Crabtree. We do it on Mondays, all brought to you by Georgetown Brewery. Tim Booth, Seattle Times. Curtis Crabtree, Fox 13. Boys, how you doing?
Good, Puck. How's it going?
No, it's going good. Curtis still, I mean, now, Curtis, the Christmas tree makes sense because we're getting closer to Christmas. So it's been a big topic here. I think on the show, every week people are excited about the Christmas tree in the background. They love it. It's a fancy.
It's just a lighted tree to me. It's been up for like 4 years straight. I haven't taken it down. So it is what it is.
Yeah, okay. Tim Booth, Seattle Times. Of course, you can catch all of his work up there at Seattle Times, seattletimes.com, not only covering the Seahawks, Kraken. He's got a Storm story up there. The guy does everything. Yeah. I thought you were going to get away from the Associated Press, less work, and it feels now that you're doing more work.
No, I am probably doing a little bit less overall. I haven't. This is the beauty of having esteemed colleagues now like Ryan Divish. where I don't have to give a rip about what's going on with the Mariners at the moment, or Condotta does like 9,000 things on Seahawks game days. I just have to do like one thing. So it's still doing a little bit of everything, but overall it's been a little bit less.
All right, Tim, I'm gonna start with you, and the Curtis, I'm gonna ask you the same question. Biggest reason for the win, reason or reasons for the win yesterday?
I thought the defense was really good. I thought they some of the things that we have talked about where is this unique system, or where are these different kind of packages or different ways to play things that Mike Macdonald was known for in Baltimore. It felt like we hadn't seen much of it yet until yesterday. And it felt like he came up with a scheme and a design yesterday that really worked. And it could be as simple as he's now got some guys in positions where they are a little bit more the fit of what they need to have, whether it's Ernest Jones, whether it's, Tyrese Knight stepping in there, whether it's maybe finally using Devin Witherspoon in kind of the way that we had all sort of expected him to be used. But I thought the defense played really well yesterday. I would give a lot of credit to Oluwatimi. I thought outside of the snap, the one, bad snap, I thought he for the situation he was thrown into, I thought he played really well. And as a whole, I thought the offensive line did okay, which is an improvement over what we've been talking about for most of the season.
Yeah.
So whether it was Abe Lucas being back in there or Olu sort of like not having to step back, and in some ways probably being better than what Connor Williams has been, the offensive line was adequate enough yesterday. Maybe not in the run game, but at least in pass protection. And then Geno's final drive was, I wrote it yesterday. I think it's the best I think it's the best drive that he's put together in his Seahawks career. And obviously there's some recency bias with that, but that was some special stuff we saw from the Seahawks quarterback yesterday in the last drive.
Curtis, so same question. I mean, reason or reasons? I'm sure you got a lot to probably kind of mirror what Tim had.
Yeah, I'll give Tim everything he just said. I'll add Jason Myers hitting 250-plus yard field goals early on to keep them in the mix. To drill one from 57 there in the first half to kind of keep them within reach. I mean, that was their best defensive performance that the 49ers have seen this year. Held them to a season low in yards gain, held them to 17 points. That's not what you've seen in Seahawks 49ers matchups in recent past. That offense has really got them in a lot of ways. And basically no one did except for Juwan Jennings. Everybody else was pretty much clamped down. So it was a really strong defensive performance to get 23 tackles out of your new starting linebacker core. Yeah, I think they felt like they needed to make a change there for a reason. So they much improved. I think over half the defense was different from the starters from the last 49ers game.
Yeah.
So it's not the same unit they saw a few weeks back. And they stepped up to the table. Kobe Bryant's played really well on the back end. With everybody else back there, Devin Witherspoon obviously had his really, really solid game there. But you also have to note the fact that, the offensive line definitely looked better once Nick Bosa couldn't play anymore, which is, but you can only play who's on the other side of the field, and they were able to hold up enough for that last drive to come together. And yes, if you look at the PFF grades, Abe Lucas and Oluwatimi are high up the list for the offense yesterday, which is a real positive given what you've seen. They still have their issues with the running game. It's the second straight game they've been unable to get consecutive and one yardage plays in a key spot that, could potentially have won the game for them, in overtime against the Rams, and then there in the fourth quarter against San Francisco. So they have to find a way to run the football more. So it's not all on Geno offensively, but you tick that one off, it keeps them in the race. And now they're in a position where you get to win this Sunday and you're leading the division again. That's how absurd this race is right now in the NFC West.
It's amazing. I mean, last week we talked about, oh my God, if they lose this game, they'll lose the Arizona game, Tim. I'm like, hey, let's just tank for the rest of the season and get a better draft pick. And all of a sudden they win this game. They've got, they got a decent chance to beat Arizona at home. They're a 1-point dog. Early line is out. But let's say they do that. San Francisco loses. And then you've got, let's see, the Rams lose at home to the Eagles. They're in first place. It's stupid.
That's a very rosy outlook from you.
It's just a
usually you're not this.
Yeah, I'm not positive. Is that what you're saying?
No, I was gonna say usually you're not this optimistic.
But that's what makes sports fun and stupid at the same time, right, Tim?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's one drive. I mean, it's one drive. It's 2+ minute possession that changed the entire outlook of how we view things. At least for now, moving forward, and whether they get beat Arizona on Sunday, okay, by winning in San Francisco, you have extended your opportunity to stay in this race. If you're in last place 2 games or 3 games back, whatever it would have been had they lost yesterday, it's a little different story, especially with the schedule you have coming up. But to your point, you get Arizona on Sunday. Arizona is still Arizona until it proves not to be Arizona. Like, that's just, I don't think anyone is necessarily buying the Cardinals yet, just because that's what it's the team and the franchise that we've come to know for so many years, being in this division. So yeah, I mean, you very easily could go to or wake up next Monday morning and be in first place, which is just an absurd thing to think about, considering how many issues we saw come to the surface in those 2 games before the bye, whether it was not being able to finish things off against the Rams, or is getting boat raced by the Bills, who, by the way, are actually pretty good. It's 1 2-minute drive just changed the entire course of things for this team for now.
Yeah, for now. And I would say, and a 2-minute drive and a drive to end the game, Curtis, that was just surgical from Geno. It was surgical. 1 incomplete pass, the 2 rushes, of course, the touchdown run. It was just, and that's that is at times so maddening about him, because he can look like that. And then you've got the first series in the third quarter, he throws the pick on just a horrendous decision. But that last drive was just sensational. He was in full command of that offense in that final drive.
This is why they need to help him with a running game, because everything's on his shoulders, eventually there's going to be a crack in there where you have the bad pick he has yesterday. He's not going to be able to play perfect all the time. No quarterback is. And for him to bounce back from that interception, lead the touchdown drive that they had on the Ken Walker scoring drive right after that was obviously a pretty critical bounce back for them. And then, backs against the wall, you could argue season against the wall. And they go straight down. They take the 1 sack on the drive, immediately get the scramble on the next play to get rid of that and get the first down to keep that drive going. And, 49ers gave them some extra time by throwing on that previous possession too. Kyle Shanahan and his clock management continues to be a problem for the 49ers in big spots, but Seattle took advantage of it and ran straight down there. And with no timeouts left, Geno realizes he can take off and run for it for that final touchdown and not worry about the clock, because he thinks he can get there. And if not, he can at least get the sideline. It was a really, really strong possession for Geno Smith to get that. And just to go back to what Tim was touching on there a second ago too, like, the Seahawks were on utter life support for their season. The 49ers are still the 49ers until proven otherwise, right? Well, now they're on life support. They go on the road to Green Bay and Buffalo the next couple of weeks, and they're in the bottom of the division too. It's like their season could be teetering on a thread now as well. So, man, it's a wild sport in the NFL sometimes.
It's stupid. Tim, I'm going to go back to it's the theme of the show. It's stupid. Sports are dumb.
Yes, I heard your rant about the Cougs not making any defensive adjustments before. I could very easily rant about how the NCAA Division II selection committee is a bunch of idiots for giving a team that lost 2 1-point games a number 7 seed and having them go on the road to play in middle of nowhere Colorado this next week. But anyway, that's beside the point. Sports are stupid.
Audience, he's talking about the famed Central Washington Wildcats, who are on the playoffs. These 2 are proud graduates from Central Washington. When does the playoffs start?
Saturday. I'm pissed. We win 13-3 on Saturday, essentially clinch a playoff spot, and we actually dropped in the rankings while 2 teams above us lost. I don't know. Explain that to me.
That East Coast bias, Tim. It's that East Coast bias.
I'm gonna raise you one.
Sorry.
Do you think you should run a defense in which 3 of your linebackers are 4 yards deep on the 1 yard line? I'm just wondering. And they're going to run the same fucking play over again and again and again and again. But yet we're not going to make any adjustments to it. Let's just keep rolling the same defense out there.
I didn't know the Cougs were playing against Marcus Tuiasosopo on Saturday night.
Good Lord. Just all year long been dealing with that crap. All right. We got lost. Sports are dumb. The Geno drive. Curtis, I want to revisit your comments there on Shanahan, because if I'm the Niners, I'm wondering, what are we doing here? Why are we throwing the football? Let's try to take some more time off the clock. But Geno, Tim, this is the roller coaster, right? The roller coaster ride with Geno Smith.
Yeah, and it's something that you have to accept and sign up for. I guess it's the nature of having a quarterback who, as Curtis was mentioning, in certain moments he looks like one of the best quarterbacks in the league, hands down. That drive, there's not many who are going to do it better than what he did. But you have to live with the mistakes. You have to live with the moments of and they haven't maybe popped up, it felt like, as often. I know he kind of leads the league with 11 interceptions, but it doesn't feel like all those have been on him. That one to start the third quarter was entirely on him, and that's just what you have to live with. That's the nature of who Geno is. The trade-off is you get moments like you get, they're at the end of the game. And would you have liked to see more of them so far this year? Absolutely. Would you have liked to see them be able to finish off the drive against the Rams in overtime and pick up 1 yard? And at this point, we're talking about a team that would be leading the division. Of course you would. But it's just the nature of who he is. And there's a lot worse out there. There's a lot worse roller coasters to be riding among quarterbacks in the NFL. If you want to be puking all the time, you can just ride the roller coaster of Daniel Jones, or no disrespect to Gardner Minshew, but Gardner Minshew and what the Raiders have going on at quarterback.
Will Levis.
Name your quarterback that, if you're on that roller coaster, it's just a vomit fest watching that guy play quarterback. With Geno, okay, you might get one of those inverted loop things on the roller coaster once a game, but you're also going to get the fun drop into the water and everyone screams and throws their hands up like you had at the end of the game.
But yesterday. I also, at times with him, not a fan of roller coasters. I hate them. But when it starts to go up that climb, and then when we get to the top, I close my eyes. I like to close my eyes at times when watching him.
Yeah, but that's what you're going to get. That's if you don't have Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, name your elite quarterback.
Burrow.
If you don't have that guy, that's the life of being an NFL fan of your team, because you're no one is, unless you're on that level, that's just the ride you're gonna have to take, and that's the ride they're gonna have to take with Geno. And to Geno's credit, he's at the upper end of that, that next tier down of oh shit, you're gonna get a few moments that are gonna make you cringe and close your eyes. But you're also going to get some pretty fun moments in there too.
Okay, Curtis, is it just me, or am I just being a Coug homer that I thought Abe Lucas looked really good yesterday, and I just thought that the offensive line kind of looked whole? Am I just being a homer, or did you see it the same way?
No, Abe looked fine when he was in there. His PFF grades are in the 70s for both pass block, run block. Pretty solid for the first game he's played in basically a year. So, there was definitely an improvement there for sure. As a whole, their running game still needs to be. It's a bottom 5 rushing offense in the NFL. They are averaging, 91.5 yards per game, which is they're 28th in the league, I think. So Geno's having to do this all to offset it, because we look at Ken Walker. I think we can all say Ken Walker's a pretty good running back. I don't think it's Ken Walker's fault that this running game isn't working. It's the fact that what's in front of him just isn't there. Mm-hmm. And so then it's putting so much on Geno's shoulders to have to do everything else. And for the most part, I think he's done pretty well this season. Obviously, yes, the pick yesterday was a bad one. He's had a couple stinky ones this year for sure. You're going to have a couple of those. and to still be able to win a game against a team that's been a thorn in your side for a long time, I mean, it's a big credit to him for sure. But as Tim was talking about with Olu playing a pretty solid game there at center, that's an improvement for them. Anthony Bradford's still an adventure at right guard, but Abe Lucas in the series he was in there seemed to be a much more consistent option at right tackle. And you would like to think that given a little bit more time to get up into football conditioning and playing a little bit more, that'll continue to improve. It at least gives you the path of seeing a higher ceiling from that group moving forward, which is something they desperately needed, because where they were at was just not non-functional sometimes back there. And so it was definitely a step forward for sure. Now, again, they didn't have to do it against Nick Bosa for almost half the game, which was a big deal for sure. But it's a step, it seems.
But I will say that, and I agree with you. Listen, they benefited Tim a bunch for him getting knocked out of the game. I mean, there's just no getting around it. But there was really, for me, I mean, I maybe go back and watch it again and see there was other plays that I'm missing. But I thought the times that at least Bosa was matched up on Lucas, I can only remember really one play where he kind of bull rushed him or got around him and made a play. I thought other than that, he was good against Nick Bosa.
Yeah, he was everything you would have hoped to see out of Abe Lucas. I mean, bottom line, like where your expectations needed to be based around him being out for as long as he was, you couldn't really have asked for more out of him yesterday, other than maybe being able to stay in for those couple of series that they rotated Mike Jarrell in, and you kind of did the close your eyes and pray thing.
Well, because you could see the difference right away. I think it was that first series that Jarrell came in. He either got beat or something bad happened. You're like, Jesus.
Yeah. So yeah, I thought, and even the one time that Abe did seem to get beat, it was in the first half, and that looked more like Zach Charbonnet messing up a blocking assignment than it was Abe necessarily getting beat or Bosa overpowering him on that play. That looked more like Charbonnet getting lost in space and not sure who to block and blocking nobody. So all things considered, for how long he had been out, for all the uncertainty about what was going on with his knees, I thought you had to come out yesterday very pleased with where Abe Lucas was at, and just kind of what he provided. Just he was really solid yesterday.
Yeah, and Curtis, you talked about Oluwatimi. I mean, again, that one snap that I think I don't know. They said on the broadcast. I tend to agree with Olsen. I thought that it was a little high, but I definitely think that Geno comes up with that. Other than that, though, he didn't give up a single pressure. I don't think, right? In the game, I think those were the stats.
I saw Brady Henderson.
Yeah,
I saw Brady tweeted that he had a perfect pass block win rate in his first start of the season. So that's definitely an improvement over what they've been having here recently. So that's a step for sure. I mean, going back to when we talked to Abe at the end of last week, he was a little miffed by all the talk about his knee injury being chronic. He goes, "It's not chronic. I know that's what Pete said. It's not the issue." He's like, "It was an injury. We addressed it. It should be, fine moving forward. Not a chronic thing." So he made a point of saying that to us on Friday when we talked to him. So a good first performance for him for sure in this one, and we'll see if he can stack. To use Mike Macdonald's words, to stack that and keep moving forward. Here.
Stacking wins, stacking plays. I love it. God, I love Mike Macdonald. It's cliche city with him, but it's great. Whatever, I'll take it. Curtis, did he elaborate at all about the injury?
He said it was something. It didn't happen at once. It kind of came, progressed on him to the point where it was. He didn't get into specifics for it. I think that's why it's been as quiet as it has. I don't think he's wanted it to be talked about. So, I don't know exactly what it is or anything. So I'd just be guessing. So that's kind of what he said, was that, it's not like it was an injury that happened and you're out. It's not like a torn ACL or something, but it's something that got worse and worse and worse until couldn't do it anymore. So that's what led to the surgery last year. And he said the point of the surgery was to get to where it's not an issue again. So that's why they did it.
Tim, for both of you, Tim, I'll start with you first though. What does a win like this do? I mean, do we especially me. I mean, we were up and down, right? A loss, the season's over. A win, God, they're going to the Super Bowl. But this was, right, Tim? I mean, early in his tenure through 10 games of his coaching tenure with the Seahawks. That's a signature Mike Macdonald win. That's his best win since he's been the head coach of the team. And stuff like that, the way they played, I thought, I mentioned this earlier, Tim, I thought it was a very AFC North style of game, kind of minus the really running the ball effectively. But the way that, I mean, listen, these two offenses, were they both held under 300 yards, I think?
Yeah. Yep.
They had a kind of that feel to it, very slugfest type. But I wonder, can this springboard you for the rest of the season?
You need, absolutely. You need moments of belief. You need moments where what you're being told or what you're being shown, is reinforced by what happens on the field. And yeah, the 3-0 start was great, but you look back on who you beat, and I don't know if that gave anybody that sort of steadfast belief that what we're doing is working. You beat 3 bad teams at the time to start the season. Now, obviously, the win over Denver looks a hell of a lot better now than it did.
Now.
But Bo Nix was not what we've seen from Bo Nix lately in that first game. So you need to find those. You need to find those moments during a season, and whether that's for Mike Macdonald to reinforce that he has guys pointed in the right direction, or he's using guys in the right way, or it's for the guys to have the belief that, hey, these coaches, can put us in the position to succeed, can use us to our best abilities in different ways on the field. You need to have those, during the course of a season, if you're going to find not only short-term success of what this season is, but then long-term success of what you're trying to build overall. I can't think of one other than maybe the Chicago game in 2012 when they won in overtime. I can't think of one in the first 2 seasons where you had that, where there was a game that stood out where the Seahawks won under Pete and you were like, yes, there's your moment of belief that this is going the right way. Hell, maybe it was the playoff win over New Orleans. But
there's a game, and I'm going to find it for you. But
okay.
Continue with that. Yeah,
but you need to have those along the way, and everybody points back to that 2012 win in overtime over the Bears, where Sidney Rice got knocked silly, catching the touchdown pass. You got to have those along the way, and for Mike Macdonald and his staff and this group, yesterday should be one that they look back on throughout the rest of the season. And if they are able to build on whatever this season becomes and move forward and to move it ahead next year, that should be one they look back on and go, hey, this team was the big bad wolf that was kicking our ass for 3 straight years in the division. And we went down there and we showed we could figure out a way to, it's a massive, it can be a massive victory for them, both for what this year can end up being, but then also what might be possible for them moving forward.
There was a game that I was trying to think of the year, but it's funny because I just saw a clip of it the other day, and someone was making this point about Macdonald looking kind of for his signature win, and what would a win mean, and how could this springboard, like what his style of play was. I thought it was in 2010, but you got to go back in 2011. They end up missing they don't go to the playoffs. They finished 7-9 that year. They end up losing their last 2 games, but God, by a combined 5 points, 2 to San Francisco and 3 to Arizona in overtime. But a game earlier that year, which a lot of people, including Carroll and others, look back on and saying, even though 2010 was great, they look at this game in 2011 against Baltimore at home, if you guys remember that. They're playing the Ravens at home. They ended up winning 22-17. They were 2-6 at the time. Everyone had written them off. They're done. They're awful. My God, did they make the right decision in Pete Carroll? And they end up beating the Ravens, who came into that game at 6-2. And Tavares Jackson played well. They ran the ball well. Lynch had like a signature play where like he juked like Ray Lewis out of his shoes.
Ray Lewis late. Yeah, I remember that.
Yep.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's this game, but there was kind of an eerily familiar game back in.
Well, if you remember right too, that was 2 games after Sherm got put into the lineup, because his first game was 2 games earlier against Cincinnati when he went up against, or his first game really as getting a lot of reps was the 2 games previous again, or 2 weeks earlier against Cincinnati and AJ Green. Absolutely. That was one where you were just starting to see the pieces of what LOB was eventually going to become. And yeah, absolutely. That was now that I think back on it, you're right. That was probably that kind of game for that group as they used as a springboard going into to 2012.
Because they end up in the next 5 games before those last 2 games of the season, in which they easily could have won. They went 4-1. So I don't know, Curtis. This is a glass half full show today on Monday, huh? They got to run for the division, and we talk Super Bowl. How about, hey, Curtis, a reunion? Seahawks, Steelers, Super Bowl. What do you think?
Oh, well, where is it this year? Can I book a flight yet? No.
It's in New Orleans.
Okay, I haven't been there yet. Quick aside on that Cincinnati game, I was the only person to go talk to Sherm after that game, and I was the one that got the whole AJ Green's one of the most overrated receivers in the NFL quotes right after that. I was like, oh, this is who Sherm's going to be, like right off the get go. So I remember that one very well myself. They intercepted Dalton at least a couple times in that game. I think Cam and Sherm each had one. It was a very memorable game, and that was when Tavares, with his torn pec, came back into the lineup to replace Charlie Whitehurst because he was better with a torn pec than Charlie Whitehurst. And yeah, so that's a very memorable game on a lot of reasons. But yeah, it's funny how a win can kind of go a long ways, right? Like, it's why the NFL is king, because every game means so much, and you get one win. You know, this is a team that was 2 minutes away from a losing 6 of 7 stretch. And now they're right in the middle of the playoff hunt and can be leading the division in 7 days. So, stupid sports sometimes.
That's what I'm saying. I'm telling you, it's stupid. They're all stupid. Okay, now for a bonus $1 each of you, okay, from that game in 2011 against the Bengals that you just brought up, 34-12 was the final Bengals won. Who had the most receiving yards for Seattle that day? He had 107.
11.
If you guys get this, you'll be great. Guesses? Anyone? Bueller?
I don't have anything off the top of my head.
Tim, anything? Top of your head. I'll give you a hint. Don't look it up. I see you looking it up. Stop it. Hold on, I lost it. We lost Tim's audio.
Yeah.
Tim, you muted
There we go.
yourself.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
There we go.
Don't look it up.
I looked it up. I'm sorry. I know what it
You
is.
son of a bitch. All right, Curtis, we're going to give you a hint. Give you a hint. Iron Bowl.
Ben Obumanu?
There you go. Ben Obumanu. 107 yards that day.
Good dude. I like Ben. See him around
occasionally. Yeah,
so,
I like Ben.
Oh, 107 yards. Unbelievable.
However, do you know where he did his master's? Funny story.
Central Washington.
Alabama.
No. That's good.
Dead
why
serious.
Not?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you do that? What about the performance? We've talked a lot about it, but this was I don't know, fork in the road type of game, Tim, for this defense. But, we talked a lot about what happened, to the offense. You got your starting center who abruptly retires. You're working in Abe Lucas. But this defense, right, you're changing linebackers left and right. The decision to cut Tyrell Robinson. And then you got Tyrese Knight who comes in there. And Knight and Jones played great yesterday. And that defense who got just manhandled in the first game up front. Manhandled. Defensive line pushed around. Linebackers couldn't make plays. I think you both noted it in your stories about how there wasn't these big chunk plays that were happening in the game yesterday. Tim, I mean, it was a complete 180 how they looked in the first game.
Well, and it fed into this idea, I think, with what Macdonald essentially wants to have is a defense that creates chaos by, bringing guys from different angles or places, but then ultimately doesn't want to get beat deep and doesn't want to give up the big chunk plays. And for whatever reason, they just couldn't. It could be as simple as they didn't feel like their linebackers could fill gaps and make tackles the way that they had wanted to through the first 9 games of the season. But whether it was that duo of Jones and Knight being together, or it was kind of unleashing Devin Witherspoon in the way that we had all sort of hoped and expected to see him use this year, they managed to play in that way yesterday. It was bring guys from different angles, but don't get beat over the top. And they didn't. They did a great job of keeping everything in front of them. I think it was one play over 20 yards was the one Juwan Jennings catch. That was it. That's a recipe that's good, that is sustainable, or it should be sustainable. That's a recipe that you can carry over, especially if your defensive front plays as well as those guys did yesterday. And that goes back to what you were saying about how badly the defensive front got manhandled in the first game, where you had Jordan Mason and Isaac Garendo, I think is his last name.
Yeah, let's go with
Yeah,
Garendo. Yeah, Garendo.
Yeah.
All-star.
Yeah, running all over the place against them, and just absolutely getting, huge chunk plays, and that offensive line for the 49ers, dominating. Yesterday, the defense, the defensive front held its own well enough to allow them to start to do some of these different things. And I thought Devin Witherspoon was great. And again, everyone thought when Macdonald came that he was going to unleash Witherspoon in the same way that he did Kyle Hamilton with the Ravens, and we hadn't seen it yet, and we finally saw some of it yesterday. And you saw just how impactful Witherspoon can be in a game.
Yeah, I mean, Curtis, he looked like that was the guy, as Tim just talked about. You talk about the guy defensively, a weapon that you can use everywhere. That was just full display yesterday for Devin Witherspoon.
Yeah, I mean, you have the tip pass interception, you have the tip pass possible interception that was up in the air, you have the rushing off the edge, that one bootleg I remember in particular where he's able to get the hand on Purdy as he gets the ball released. It's amazing what can happen when you're not in 3rd and 1 defensively all the time. Like, actually being able to hold up in the early downs to where you can force some 3rd down situations where you can get a little bit creative with your rush schemes and do some different things. And yeah, as Tim mentioned, there was just the one play over 14 yards in the game yesterday that they had. So they just didn't allow explosive plays at all. Made the tackles in general for the most part that they needed to make when they were there. Yeah, I mean, it was probably pretty clearly the best linebacker play game they've had of the season from those guys. And Tyrese Knight, I don't think has looked out of place in any of the starts that he's made this year. Like he maybe had a rookie moment here though, but it seems like he can live up to the playing time. And Ernest Jones has certainly leveled that position out with his addition to the team here the last couple of weeks. So definitely an improvement there. And yeah, if you can get to situations where Witherspoon can be Witherspoon and you can try these different things with them, that's a big benefit for your offense too.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it was the best tackling game that they had since the Broncos game. I remember after a while, the Broncos game was like, God, man, look at the difference in the tackling. It's unbelievable. And then it went away. Like, well, what happened to the tackling? But yesterday it wasn't that they just they tackled well. They rallied to the ball. Everyone was there. If they couldn't get one guy down, they would, there'd be another guy there to pick up. I mean, Jennings was a beast yesterday. I mean, so it was hard to bring him down because at times he was the best player on the field. But I just thought overall they tackled great.
Well, I think
just real quick. I know I mentioned him earlier, but I think you have to give credit to Kobe Bryant. You have to give credit to Josh Joe. These are a couple guys in the back end that have stepped in the lineup and really played pretty good football. And speaking of Bryant, he had that one tackle on Juwan Jennings where he hit him, stayed with him on a 3rd down, forced a punt. It might have been early in the game, but yeah, both those guys have stepped in really well. And it goes to those guys that have turned over from the last game. Byron Murphy didn't play in the first game against the 49ers. Roy Robertson Harris wasn't here. Both the linebackers are changed out. Kobe Bryant at safety, Josh Jobe at corner. Tariq might have been out for that game with injury too. So like it was a very different defense than the 49ers saw a few weeks back. And they played really, really good effort yesterday.
I mean, Curtis kind of stole it, but I was going to give, Kobe, the way Kobe Bryant has played, I think allows them to feel comfortable using Devin in those different ways and kind of unleashing his aggressiveness and being able to bring him in blitz packages or have him play different spots in coverage, because Bryant's got that experience of he's played in the slot, he's played at safety. You can kind of put him in coverage sort of anywhere. And kind of what he's brought stepping into a more prominent role and playing really well now for several weeks. I think that'll help them have a little bit more confidence in giving Witherspoon the chance to be as disruptive as he was yesterday.
Now I'm going to overreact to one game, but I know it's been a topic down there with these guys, and it's something that I've talked to Mike Garofolo a lot, just about where San Francisco is going to be at next season. I mean, they're going to have to make a franchise-changing decision, and they'll do it because they have to do it. Where they're going to have to pay Brock Purdy. You can see. I mean, again, you don't want to close it because I think in this league you can get so creative with the cap and all that. But you can see their window because they haven't been able to get it done here in the last 3-4 years, right? Where they haven't brought it home. And you're doing it with a guy that's playing under like no money. Eventually when they pay him, and they will pay him in the offseason, I mean, there's going to be tough decisions to make. They'll have to. And I just wonder down there if you're not capitalizing on it, and they're running through one great team who's just knocking them off left and right there in Kansas City. But you can start to see, that gap closing for them, can't you guys? I mean, to a degree. How much it's closing, I don't know, but I think you can see closing a little bit.
Yeah, the contract that's going to kill him isn't the Purdy contract. It's the Ayuk contract that they just did. That's the one that they're going to end up probably regretting, because you just saw Juwan Jennings maybe be as good, better, than what Ayuk's been this year, and obviously he's out hurt now. Deebo Samuel has not been the guy he's been in the past either. And so to commit another wide receiver contract on top of, the upcoming quarterback contract to come, it's probably the Ayuk one that's going to feel like more of an albatross than anything when they get there. You can win. You can obviously win in the NFL with a big quarterback contract. A lot of teams do it. It's a bad contract you have somewhere else on the roster that ends up being the one that pulls you down. Because when you have that quarterback contract, it means you've got to be almost perfect with your other roster decisions because you've lost that margin for error, as we saw with the Seahawks coming out of the Super Bowls, where they'd given the Percy Harvin contract, the Jimmy Graham contracts, were ones that just didn't quite work out the way that they hoped to have. And, same with the Rams. Like, the Rams loaded up to get their Super Bowl and then had to pay the price here a couple years ago with the year Bobby Wagner was down there when the bottom fell out on him. Trent Williams is old, didn't play, played yesterday, but was touch and go. That roster is very close to facing a reckoning because of those contract situations. And it might be a contract like Ayuk's where he now has to recover from an ACL tear. Maybe he doesn't come back to be the player he thought he has been previously. It's something like that that's going to be the thing that ultimately sinks them, I think.
You probably have one more year with the Niners before they have to kind of have their come to Jesus meeting with how you're gonna manage it, because they probably don't, they don't give Ayuk that contract without, budgeting out what next year is all gonna look like, knowing that they're gonna have to pay Brock Purdy. But the bigger picture of where this division goes is really kind of fascinating, because yes, you probably have one more year where the Niners can sort of be the Niners before they got to do something. They either have to tear it all down and sort of rebuild with youth and rookie contracts around Purdy and the investments that they've already committed to with a handful of guys. The Rams are going to have to make a decision at some point about, is Matthew Stafford going to play forever? And then what do you do there with your quarterback situation there? Oh, by the way, they have Puka Nacua on a rookie contract, but they're paying a lot for, at some point he's going to have to get paid. And what do you do with Cooper Kupp at that point? And Kyron Williams, what do you do with your star running back? And then you have just kind of hanging out there down in the desert, Arizona, who's kind of already gone through the tear down process because they were so bad there for several years. It's a great question about where the Niners go in the future, but I think the division as a whole, it feels very, you don't feel like there's a team that necessarily has it figured out perfectly moving forward beyond really maybe next year. There's a lot of questions for all four of those teams as you move beyond, the 25 season and going forward.
I mean, it's nuts how wide open it is. I mean, it's just crazy. I mean, and Seattle's got a tough road here. I mean, listen, they're going to finish the season. I mean, it's going to be a tough one against Arizona this week. Arizona's a much better football team. than they've been in the past. It's also a team, in some weird reason, why they've always played them better in Seattle than they've played them in Arizona. I don't understand that, but that's just the way that it's been. Seattle obviously, hasn't played well at home this year. They play better on the road, but they get Arizona at home. Then they have to go to New York. They get Arizona within 2 of the next 3 weeks. They got to face Arizona, and then you come back home and against 2 teams out of the NFC that are playing good football. I mean, obviously in the Vikings and the Packers, and then you get a little bit of relief because of the way Chicago. I mean, I know Chicago looked a little bit better yesterday and should have won that game against Green Bay, but you got to go do Chicago and then in the season there with the Rams. It's just I don't know, this year more than ever, guys. I can't figure out this team, and then I can't figure out the league. It's just, I mean, literally, it's the worst year to bet, by the way. You guys don't gamble. Stay away. If you want to bet on the NFL, you're thinking, I'm going to start here in week 11. Don't do it. Just run away. Don't do it anymore. It's miserable. That's my gambling advice to both.
Seattle needs to get, back above water before that stretch with the Vikings and Packers coming up later in there. You have to get to the plus side of 500 with this stretch against Arizona and the Jets coming up to get, give yourself a chance to obviously, if those games go well, the Minnesota, Green Bay games, then you're really sitting pretty, but also to give yourself the flexibility to be able to kick one or even both of them and still stay in the race. And even if Chicago's not a great team, they're staying in games. They just can't find a way to win them.
Yeah.
So, it's not like it's going to be a walkover kind of in a performance either. What's that, the day after Christmas, right? So, yeah.
Hey, go ahead, Tim.
I would say, can we address why the NFL schedule makers decided to give the Seahawks the entire NFC North for 3 straight weeks at the end of December when you're supposed to be playing your division? What the hell?
I didn't think about that until you just brought it up.
Packers, Vikings, Bears, all in a row. I mean, yes, they do close with the Rams, so they did get that right. So it's not quite as bad as the Mariners playing the Rockies and the Dodgers to close the season next year.
Yeah.
It's just like Central when we were in the North Central Conference and having to play Minnesota Mankato and Nebraska Omaha and schools like that and going back to the Midwest back when.
Just like it, yeah.
Same thing.
Apples to apples.
Because you're right, because you get your Arizona, your divisional opponent, in 2 times in a 3-week span.
Yeah, it's a very strange way the schedule was put together this year, and then the short week having to go to Chicago the day it's bad. It was not a very favorable schedule for them.
Last thing for you 2 longtime journalists, help me figure out what was the point of dropping the Deebo Samuel to Seattle story the week of. What do you think that was all about? And who's that coming from? Who's that coming from? Is that coming from Seattle?
I don't know. That feels like agents. That feels like agent. I think everyone knows that there are 2 things. One, I think everyone knows that the Niners are going to move on from Deebo after this season. Yeah. So that could be an agent trying to build up a market for him. Moving into the offseason and what his options might be. And then you couple that with whether there was legitimate smoke or not. There was obviously, consideration about whether there was going to be a move with DK.
Well,
because you're going to have to pay them. And so I think you just kind of, someone put 2 and 2 together and said, well, the Seahawks were thinking about it in 2019 when Deebo got drafted. Well, that makes total sense why Seattle would go after him this offseason. They don't have to pay DK at that, in that situation. So
it made me feel that it was coming from Seattle.
It could be. To me, it felt more agent driven, but it could be. It could be coming from the Seahawks.
I could see a circumstance where it comes from the Seahawks side too, wanting to say well, we would have taken Deebo as well because we knew he was going to be great. But I truly don't know. I didn't even read the story because I read the headline. I was like, that's strange. Also, who cares? And I was just kind of I don't get the point of it. So,
there's always a point though. That's the thing. You know this. I mean, they use these guys all the time. Yeah.
I felt like I got that with the headline that somebody was trying to get it out there. So like I didn't feel like I needed any particulars on it. Like I just didn't actually read it. I was just like, okay, and like if they do draft Debo first, are we sure they actually go through with drafting DK? This like there's so many
or they don't get him. I mean, they had to wait. It was another 30 odd picks, right?
Well, did they trade back up into the end of the second round to get him? Is that what it was too, right?
Yeah.
So so I don't know. If they have Debo already in their pocket, do they do that? I don't know. Maybe at that point you trade Tyler and jump on. There's probably a way to have done it if that circumstance came on. I just don't know. I guess I said I'm struggling to figure out what the point of that was.
Hey, Tim, in your unofficial state rankings, how far did we drop again, the Cougs?
I think I dropped you guys to 3. I had you guys tied with Whitworth because Whitworth.
Oh, they got hammered though.
They got hammered by Linfield. Yeah, but Whitworth got a home playoff game, even though they got hammered by Linfield. But Central wins, and they don't get a home playoff game. Stupid NCAA. Jesus.
All right, what's the early? Where can I find a line on the Central game? Central's playing. Remind me.
They're playing Western Colorado, who's the same
Colorado.
team they beat, the same team they played in the first round of the playoffs last year. Which I even have a bigger rant about this. So you go to Bill Conley from ESPN, who does like his power rankings kind of things. He ranks every team in college football. Every team in college football, no matter the division. So he's got FCS teams ranked higher than a bunch of FBS teams, whatever.
Okay.
He has Division 2 is worked in there. The 219th ranked team in the country for him, based on his analytic power rankings, is Western Colorado. The 220th ranked team in the country is Central Washington. What the hell? What are we doing, NCAA? You have the same matchup as last year in the first round, and you did it again, and you didn't have to do it again. I don't get fired up about stuff like this very often.
No,
but
I
this
can
one
tell.
pissed me off.
Yeah. Do we have an early line on the game?
Probably Western Colorado by a touchdown. I don't know.
Where do you watch this? I was thinking about both of you this weekend when I was honestly when I saw your tweet that came out where the bracket, and I'm honestly, when you watch, I don't know how much you watch Central games during the year, like regular season, where do you find it?
So there is a funny that you asked. So I actually went to, I guess I only made one game this year, but there's a company called Flow Sports who is a streaming broadcaster that they have a partnership with the Lone Star Conference, which is where Central plays, and you can stream all their games and watch them. And funny enough, the game on Saturday against Western Oregon was their free game. You didn't have to pay for it. You just watch it. So I watched the game on a big chunk of the game on YouTube while I was covering the Kraken game on Saturday.
Better or worse than the CW?
Ooh, good question. Probably better, or I mean worse, just because the CW has a couple more cameras. Than what this group has.
Do they have the ump camera, the middle referee camera?
No, they don't have that at the D2 level. They don't quite have that one.
All right, there he is, Tim Booth, Seattle Times. Go read all of his work up at seattletimes.com. Follow him on Twitter. The handle?
By Tim Booth.
Easy peasy, by Tim Booth. Curtis Crabtree, Fox 13. All of his work is up there. You can read it there. You can also find him on the TV. He does the Washington Sports Rep. When's your next appearance on there? By the way, the other day you looked great.
Scheduled.
Huh?
I don't have one scheduled, so free and clear for the time being. But Curtis _ Crabtree on Twitter / the other place is called now. So
it was a great quarter zip or something you had on. It was just you looked
just
sharp.
a sweater zip thing. Yeah,
it's sharp, sir. All right, boys. We're not going to talk to you next week. Thanksgiving week, we're gonna take it off. Little R&R.
I'm disappointed. I was looking forward to jumping on from the Honda Center in Anaheim, where I'll be next Monday. But no, I get it.
Why you're in the Honda Center?
The Kraken are on the road next week, so
okay. So we're going with the Kraken. All right. So we'll give you guys the week off. We'll see you back on December 2nd. Thanks, boys. Have a great and happy Thanksgiving.
Thanks, guys. Have a great Thanksgiving, Puck.
Yep, you as well. There he is. There they are, I should say. Tim Booth and Curtis Crabtree. We do it every Monday, the Ground Puck Seahawks podcast. It's available up on YouTube. Go there. And when you're there on YouTube to go watch it later, please like and subscribe and leave a comment Also up on Apple, Spotify, wherever you find your podcasts. And, of course, we put everything up at pucksports.com. I know initially when the show got started, it was a little choppy, and people are saying it was cutting in and out. Hopefully it's better now on all the streams. I did hear back that, hey, listen, it was just like the first 5 or 10 minutes, and then it worked itself out. I don't know. The gremlins were eating at the cords. I'm not quite sure. Just to recap, the Seahawks, those guys are great, by the way. I just love talking to both of them. It's just a great win. Just an unexpected fun win. I found myself yesterday watching that more. Maybe it's because the Cougs just stunk it up on Saturday and pissed me off so much that I just found myself enjoying that game yesterday. Because what I think I enjoyed about it more in a weird way more than anything is they didn't play great. And they made a lot of mistakes, and it just wasn't perfect. But it was a gutty win, just a real gutty win for a team that needed to desperately win because they knew it. They knew their season was on the line. They knew they lost that game, that they're out. They're done. I mean, the season's over. They'll never admit it. They'd have been, at that point, you're thinking, my God, 4-6. What do we lose one more game, we're likely out. And so I just thought for an organization been through a lot, and let's be honest, a lot of this is self-inflicted. Okay. But for the changes that they made, for the Connor Williams, which no one has an explanation what happened to Connor Williams. Again, I hope Connor Williams is okay. But for all of that, all the stuff they dealt with, Mike Macdonald talked about it after the game. Hey, we were hearing this outside noise. Do not believe them, any of them. The coaches, the players, all of it. When they say they don't listen, they don't read or listen to the media, they do. They all do. They all got burner accounts. They all go and track it. Trust me. I've been in many of a locker room. They all know. They want to tell you they don't know, but they know. They know what's going on. And you would too. It's human nature. You want to know what people are saying about you. Just a gutty win. A gutty win there for the Seahawks, and we'll see what they can do as they welcome in Arizona coming to town on Sunday. And an Arizona team that just, has always, in a weird way, just kind of had their way. Let's quickly, we'll have more on the Cougs tomorrow. John Canzano, of course, joins us, and then we'll do our Old Crimson podcast. As I just said in the beginning of it, I would move on from their defense coordinator, Jeff Schmedding. I just don't think he's the guy. He has not shown anything this year defensively that would inspire me going into another year with him. I think Jake Dickert's got to take some ownership of that defense. Whether he starts calling the defense or not, I'm all for it. I mean, we see it at the college. We see it at both levels, college and NFL, where coaches are calling plays. And that guy's a defensive coordinator at heart. It might be wise and time for him to pick up the headsets and just start calling it. Just start calling the defense. We touched on the analytics and timeouts. It just wasn't it. I don't know what that book that they subscribe to tells them, but it was awful. It was awful, and you're not going to excuse Ben Arbuckle at all. I thought Ben Arbuckle. There's just times with Ben Arbuckle that I don't get it. I don't get that things are working so well. And here's the thing: give credit to Alex Brink. He talked about in the post game, saying, "What were we doing? You're playing complimentary football in the first half, mixing in run pass, and then you just let's go away from it." And that's, I think, the core to me. And again, we'll have more on this tomorrow. What bothers me so much about the air raid is that because in the heart of the air raid is this want and desire to throw the ball all the time. It's just in the nature of that play caller. They cannot help themselves. Even know that the stats and the game and their eyes tell them that running the football is a better decision, they can't do it. They can't. They just they have to sit there and go pass. I mean, that defense, it was just stupid. They rushed 3 and they dropped 8 every single time. And he's like, no, I'll just keep throwing the ball. Jimmy Lake all over again. The same thing. We'll have more on that coming up tomorrow. Weekend roundup before we get to Hey What the Puck. Dogs of the Week. Our Dogs of the Week. We did this on Friday. We introduced it with Jim, myself, and Troy Wins. Jim, hopefully, he's back on Wednesday. For those who are coming in late wondering where he was at, he was supposed to have knee surgery today, cleaning up some scar tissue, and then fell sick and didn't do that. So that's why he's not here. But hopefully he'll be back on Wednesday. We all did pretty well. I took ASU plus 7.5. Jim took San Jose State plus 14. And I'm pretty sure they did not cover that. And then Troy ended up covering the Pitt plus the 12 in that game. I think because the final score, because Clemson had to win late in that game. So he ended up covering. And Boise State did not cover. I want to double check that one because I'm pretty sure that they did not cover in that game, the Mountain West game. Where is the Mountain West? I'll find the score there for the Boise State game from last week. Boise State ended up, that was a game that was close for a while, and they pulled away 42-21. They outscored them 28-7 in the second half. So, poor Jimbo did not cover the San Jose State plus the 14. I did, though. Arizona State with the shocker over Kansas State plus the 7.5. Who raised your hand if you watched the Tyson and Paul fight? I did. I sat down. We went over a friend's house. We watched it. God, it dragged on. It was a dud. Probably knew it was going to be dud. I lost $100 to Jim on the stupid thing because I bet with my heart and not my head with Mike Tyson. I wanted Mike Tyson to murder him. And then when I saw Tyson come out and in the ring, I'm like, oh shit. He couldn't move. He looked tired. He looked all of 58 years old. I will say this though. Two things. One, we never had any streaming issues. I saw online or on social media that was a big deal. We didn't have any. None at all. It was perfect. So I don't know what the deal with that was. The female fight before it was the best fight I've seen in a long time. Like a long time. I mean, the other one, great fight I can remember just as a kid was watching Sugar Ray and Marvin Hagler. This thing was awesome. Those two girls went after each other. It was brutal. I mean, bombs. It was like watching a Rocky movie. They were just swinging for the fences. It was awesome. That was a great fight. And then the fight right before that, I think it was the welterweight title, super welterweight. That was a great fight. I don't know. Those two fights, not the Tyson dud with Paul. I mean, I knew what it was. It was listen, Jake Paul could have murdered him, be honest with you, and he didn't. He could have hit him with a barrage of right hands and decided not to do it because he didn't want to embarrass him. But that was just a spectacle, and I knew that going in. But those previous two fights, man, that's what makes my love affair for boxing, because those were great fights, man. Watching that Steelers Ravens game yesterday, son of a bitch did it again, man. He had that pick that was awful in the red zone, but I mean, the Steelers, you got to take the Steelers kind of serious right now, a little bit. I mean, some serious Super Bowl contenders. They run the ball. They've got smart quarterback play, minus that interception, and their defense legit. They took away Lamar Jackson and they made him throw the football, and that's playoff Lamar, and that's what's going to happen in the playoffs. They played playoff Lamar, and he couldn't bring it home. They were idiotic for not giving the ball to Derrick Henry more. But the Steelers, can you imagine if he goes back to the Super Bowl? I mean, he's got to get through the Bills. He got to get through the Chiefs. I mean, AFC is loaded, but good God. How bad are things for Drew Lock in our weekend roundup? He's not even going to start. Drew Lock's not even, they're going to bench Daniel Jones, and they're going with the DeVito guy. He's going to start, and not Drew Lock. Drew Lock's been the backup all year long, and they've decided to bench Jones, and instead of going with Lock, they're going with DeVito. Okay. How's she doing, by the way? Can we check in on her, how Melanie's doing? Can we see how what she's up to in New York City? Last thing, weekend roundup, Bills. They did it again, but they did it in the regular season. It's the fourth consecutive win over the Chiefs in the regular season. The only big deal. Like the overreaction to the Bills beating them, and then the overreaction to the Chiefs. Oh, what's wrong with the Chiefs? Oh, can we just wait till the postseason and we'll see what's wrong with the Chiefs? And again, big deal for the Bills. I mean, good regular season win, but you can't beat them in the postseason. And that's all that matters. It's all that matters for the Chiefs is just getting to the postseason. That is our weekend roundup. All right, before we go here, hey, what the puck? Let's get to it. It's brought to you by Restoration One. God, we love Restoration One of North Seattle. Aren't they? They're just the best. I'm telling you. Restoration One of North Seattle. It's your restoration company. Lets you avoid the stress of water, fire, and mold damage. Look at these guys. They're beautiful. Oh, the Restoration One. No, that's the wrong one. I don't want that one. I don't want to share that on my screen. I want to share Restoration One's beautiful website. Get there. Get to it, you moron. There we go. Water damage property restoration there in North Seattle. They've been doing it for a long time. They're locally owned and operated. Make them your first call when damages affect your residential or commercial property. Call Trent and call Derek. They're going to take care of you. 206-817-8917. Visit them online, as you see on your screen, restoration1.com, the North Seattle franchise. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They got a 5-star rating. They're going to take care of you. They're at restoration1.com, the North Seattle franchise. All right. Hey, what the puck? Sports are stupid. We talked about it. That's been the theme of the show, man. I'm telling you, stupid, stupid, stupid. And they're the best at the same time. That's why I love it. It's the greatest reality show ever. Because just when you count someone or a team out, they deliver. And that's what the Seattle Seahawks did. They delivered, man. And all credit goes to that, to the players, and credit goes to that coaching staff, the Seahawks, for what they pulled off yesterday down there in Santa Clara. With a loss, season's likely over. Done. Because not only mathematically you're still alive, but I think you start to lose momentum and hope of whether or not you can get this thing turned around, and whether or not the messaging from the coaches, the front office, is the right one. But they got it done. And they got it done against a team that's dominated them for the previous 6 meetings. They got it done against a team in which Geno Smith had 0 success against. And mind you, in those 6 games that you lost, you're losing by damn near double digits every time. You're getting blown out. You got blown out earlier this year. You got run over by an offense that didn't have their best player then. But you made changes to your defense. It looked so much better yesterday. And what was so impressive about the win yesterday is that you beat them, you punched them in the mouth in their own backyard. That's what was awesome yesterday for Mike Macdonald and that rest of that team. Signature win, damn right, it's a signature win. That is 8. Now, hopefully, there's many more signature wins to come there from Mike Macdonald. But for the first time, I think this season, really actually the first time since the Broncos game, the decision to move in the direction and the decision to go with Macdonald and to where Mike Macdonald can look out there, and there's going to be some things that he wants cleaned up. He's going to want the ball. They're going to want them to run the ball more. But he looked at, and I bet he got on that plane, flew back to Seattle, and said, that's how we play football. That's how we play football now in Seattle. That's how I want us to look under me and our staff. And it was a great first step yesterday, great win there yesterday for the Seahawks that, again, they win next week, and then the Rams lose at home to Philly. They're in first place. It's just dumb. Just dumb, 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 dumb. All right, that's Hey, What the Puck, brought to you by Restoration One in North Seattle. Your restoration company lets you avoid the stress of water, fire, and mold damage with their property restoration services. Locally owned and operated. Make them your first call when damages affect your residential or commercial property. 206-817-8917. Visit them online, restoration1.com, the North Seattle franchise. All right, coming up tomorrow on the radio program, the Daily Puck Drop. I said radio program. Daily Puck Drop. John Canzano. We'll talk all things college football. We'll talk about the Cougs. We'll talk about the Huskies win bowl eligible. I was right, Jordan and Delise. I told you I was right. Damon Williams should be the quarterback, and no doubt should be the quarterback against Oregon. We'll talk about that decision. We'll talk about Oregon squeaking out a win. Tough, hard-fought win. Danny Kelly will stop on by for the Athletic, for the Ringer I'm all over the place. Danny Kelly, The Ringer. We talk all things NFL. We'll talk Seahawks. We'll talk fantasy football. We've got fantasy football questions for Danny. Send them in tomorrow. And also, our exclusive Mariners off-season diamond table, not round table, diamond table, with Ryan Divish, Adam Jude, Jim Duquette, Brad Adam, and Bill Kruger comes out this Wednesday. And again, exclusive for Puck's Posse community membership. That will come out. One-time show that we're doing. It's going to be about damn near 2 hours. It's finishing touches will be made this afternoon. We'll give you a preview, a snippet of it on Wednesday here on the Daily Puck Drop, but that full show will be available to the Puck's Posse community membership, which you go right on that QR code. If you're watching on YouTube or on Twitter, it will take you there to sign up. $5 a month. You get a 10% discount for the year, so $54. It's a hell of a deal, by the way. Hell of a deal. More information is up at pucksports.com, by the way, if you want to go sign up there. It will take you right to the sign up. Again, exclusive content like that and other exclusive content coming like Dynamic Duos and other projects coming in the new year. But sign up today at the Puck's Posse community membership. Again, it's just as little as $5 a month. I mentioned this before. No shows next week. No shows next week for Thanksgiving week. We're off. We're going to be visiting family. You guys take the time off. You won't miss me. You'll have our exclusive Mariners off-season diamond table up with all those guys to listen to. But we'll be taking next week off, so no shows next week. We'll be back with live shows on Monday, December 2nd. All right, that's it. Again, all content, Daily Puck Drop every day at 10 a.m., weekly guests, and everything else coming out at 1 o'clock. Usually around 1 o'clock in case you miss anything. I know some people come in late, so the entire show and all of our guests will be released coming up at 1 o'clock today on all the platforms. YouTube, please subscribe there, pass it along. Also on Apple, Spotify, wherever you find your podcast, and of course up at pucksports.com. Appreciate it as always. Everyone have a great Monday. We'll talk to you tomorrow. As always, we promise, let's hear it, to be better.
No shoes, no ties.
Would anybody like to smoke some pot?
Yeah.
I was born to love you. I was born to lick your face. I was born to rub you. But you were born to rub me first.
What do you need my address for?
We'd like to send out a mailer.
Mother of mercy, I don't speak Japanese!